Thanks, Sophie. You're watching South East Today. Our top story tonight, allegations of a gang culture at a Sussex neurosurgery department and claims that complex spinal surgery was performed without adequate training. Counting the cost, farmers' fears that the record-breaking wet weather could lead to food shortages.
There's going to be a gap this summer when we run out of potatoes in this country. Hopefully we'll be able to import them, but actually we are going to be short, and that is a direct consequence of this weather.
And we're live in Canterbury to examine the impact of the soggy spring on tourism in the city. Growing the game, a first ever open training session for Brighton's women as they hope for bumper crowds. And a doodle documentary, a new film about the extraordinary life of acclaimed Kent artist Sam Cox. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Ellie Crisell. We begin tonight with the claims made by a doctor at his employment tribunal that a gang culture existed at an NHS neurosurgery department in Sussex. Mansour Farugi alleges patients were put at risk at the University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust, where police are investigating 105 cases of alleged medical negligence. The Trust says it will vigorously contest his claims. Joe Pike reports.
Are they whistleblowers or troublemakers? These two surgeons spoke out about patient safety at their NHS trust in Sussex. One was dismissed, the other demoted. Both have taken their cases to employment tribunals. Towering over the seaside city of Brighton is a hospital. It's the headquarters of an NHS trust in crisis, where Sussex police are investigating at least 105 cases of alleged medical negligence. We don't know which cases are of interest to police, but they have spoken to the family of 23-year-old Lewis Chilcott. He died after an alleged surgical error.
About 11:30 I got a phone call to say it was a really long phone call, and I just knew the direction of that phone call. And then the fella finally said it. He said, "I'm really sorry, but Lewis passed away on the operating table." And so then immediately, you know, our lives are shattered.
The Trust said that their heartfelt sympathies go to Lewis's family and friends for their tragic loss, and their primary concern is safe and effective care. But today's employment tribunal documents allege the problems go back far longer. Mansour Farugi is the neurosurgeon who claims there was a gang culture in his department. He has more than 25 years' experience, has performed over 4,000 brain and spine procedures, but was sacked for gross misconduct in 2022 and now focuses on private work. In his tribunal, he alleges one surgeon at University Hospital Sussex was approved to perform complex spinal surgery without adequate training. A second surgeon undertook procedures which led to a disproportionate level of deaths, and a third undertook private work whilst on call to the NHS, which, if true, would be a breach of the NHS Code of Conduct. Krish Singh was the clinical director for abdominal surgery. He's worked in these hospitals for 20 years and pioneered keyhole operations to remove stomach cancers. But he was demoted in 2019 and claims the decision was made whilst he was on holiday. He had warned about changes to surgeon emergency rotas, which he alleges reduced the number of safe consultants on call and put patients at risk, and that the changes happened for financial reasons. Are you shocked by what we've uncovered?
I'm really shocked by reading the reports, because it's not just one report, it's repeated reports over a long period of time, and the fact that those concerns of whistleblowers continue to this day. So this is just completely unacceptable.
University Hospital Sussex has told us they'll vigorously contest these claims at employment tribunals. Dismissing anyone or removing someone from a leadership role is an absolute last resort, and in both cases due process was followed, and they're confident they did the right thing for the benefit of patients. In Mr. Farugi's case, they also say they use an experienced external investigator as part of the disciplinary process. Mansour Farugi and Krish Singh's employment tribunals could take years to conclude. Meanwhile, the police investigation continues.
Joe Pike reporting. Well, let's talk to our health correspondent, Mark Norman. Mark, what does this all mean for patients?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it? It's about patient confidence in the services at this hospital. I think it's important to remember it's one of the busiest hospitals in terms of surgery in the country, and inspectors recently actually upgraded their rating on surgery in the hospital, and in particular caring, they're rated it as good, which is doing quite well compared to other parts of the country. But it's also about leadership. Can the leadership of this trust inspire confidence in the public, in their own staff? Can they see through the reforms that they say they're putting in place? Can they change the culture, in particular in individual departments? Because, as we say, patients need confidence, don't they? They need to have confidence in the outcomes, in the care they're going to get, confidence in the plans that are in place, and those plans are quite extensive. But I think the Trust still have a lot of work to do to get to that point with us, the patients, the public.
Mark, thank you. Now, how the record-breaking wet weather has left a trail of financial losses, damage and disruption for the South East's businesses. Farmers are warning of potential food shortages as they struggle to plant crops in their rain-soaked fields, while those whose livelihoods depend on tourism say the downpours have led to cancelled bookings. Piers Hopkirk assesses the impact of a soggy start to the spring.
By any measure, it's been the wettest of winters, and spring's only added more rainfall to an already saturated landscape. For Richard Brown, who's farmed in the Cuckmere Valley for more than 40 years, he's seen nothing quite like it.
It's been hard on the crops, it's difficult to plant things, to get things done at the right time. It's been hard on the people, it's been hard on the community because our river has flooded incessantly and our roads have been underwater.
There are now very real fears that it could lead to food shortages further down the line.
So this weather, it starts to impact food supply. We talk about food security, this is what it looks like. Potato harvest, there's 1 million tonnes of potatoes still in the ground from last year. We're now late planting this year's potatoes and it's sodden, and there's going to be a gap this summer when we run out of potatoes in this country. Hopefully we'll be able to import them, but actually we are going to be short. And that is a direct consequence of this weather, followed by last year's weather.
The impact of climate change is likely to worsen the problem. So just how bad has it been?
Since August last year, there's been 1,000 millimetres of rain. That's 50% more than we'd usually see over that period. February alone saw 198 millimetres, over 3 times the average, making it the wettest February on record. While so far, April has yielded nearly double what we'd normally expect for the first 10 days of the month.
And of course that coincided with the Easter holidays, so tourism and hospitality takes a hit too. The Stour in Canterbury may look tranquil today, but heavy rain has meant fast-moving water, and that puts a stop to boat tours like this.
Well, I would say it's probably cut the turnover by at least 60 to 70% in that period, which obviously creates a lot of challenges for us as a business, and we're very thankful for some lovely sunshine today, and hopefully that'll continue for a nice, long, hot summer.
The soggy ground means this Kent campsite's been forced to close for a fortnight.
We've had to make little dikes to get the water out of the walkways. We can't get the tractors in to mow the ground, and it will probably take a good few weeks for the sun to dry up.
Reassuringly though, some have battled on, come rain or shine.
We've had a lot of people who want to go on the tours. They're obviously quite tough. As are we guides, we never cancel a tour, we go out whatever the weather.
So, having waded through winter, the hope remains for some drier days to come. Piers Hopkirk, BBC South East Today.
Well, our reporter Claire Starr has spent the day in Canterbury, and as we heard there, Claire, some people out doing their thing whatever the weather, but it has been a challenging period for tourism there.
Yes, it has, and it has been a warm and sunny day here today, the kind of day that the businesses we've spoken to and the farmers across the region have been waiting for. And we all love to moan about the weather, but it really has been wet. It's been the UK's wettest 18 months on record, so not just a spot of bad weather, and that's on top of pandemic recovery, increasing costs, and farmers have been protesting about cheap imports too. There is some positivity, though, from the businesses here. The walking tours are hoping to hire more guides later in the year, and Alexandra is also hoping to reopen her campsite at the end of next week. But to help them recover from all the rain, they're going to need plenty more days like today.
Indeed. Well, weather forecast coming up later in the programme. Claire, thank you. Sussex Police has been accused of failing to respond adequately to a report of a vulnerable missing teenager in Eastbourne who went on to take their own life. An inquest jury has concluded failures by both police and health services may have contributed to the death of the 15-year-old. Jason Pullman, formerly known as Jessica O'Brien, suffered from gender dysphoria and mental health issues, the jury said. Jason's mother said they felt they were left with no one to turn to. Sarah Smith reports.
A cheeky and funny child, according to his mum, who increasingly struggled with life, self-harming from age 13 and turning to drink and drugs, cutting off family and friends. Jason Pullman had been Jessica O'Brien until suffering gender dysphoria when a young teen. As the mental health issues worsened, Jason's mother and stepfather said they felt it was impossible to get the help needed.
We rung social services repeatedly when things were going on for Jason, with attempted suicide beforehand and with self-harming, and as we could see his decline in his mental health rapidly picking up speed.
2 years ago this month, aged 15, Jason disappeared from home. Sussex police were called in the morning but didn't visit the family home until evening, not long before the teenager's body was found in an Eastbourne park.
The jury said Jason intended to die that day, but failures by those involved in his care, health and social services and the police, may have been contributing factors.
Today, police said they'd met with the family to formally apologise and were working to ensure vulnerable children with complex mental health needs received the best possible service. Health and social services also said they accepted the findings and were committed to supporting young people. Jason's hopes, said mum Emily, had all been on an appointment with the controversial Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic, which had a 26-month-long waiting list.
I hope they seriously look into children who are presenting with gender dysphoria and really come to grips with how they can help their mental health and what's going on for these kids, because Jason was so confused and lost towards the end that he couldn't answer himself what he needed.
Straight.
Their hope things will change to save others from their pain. Sarah Smith, BBC South East Today, Hastings.
A petition calling for an immediate clean-up of woodland in Kent, blighted by illegal waste, has attracted nearly 5,000 signatures. Earlier this week, conservation groups and the broadcaster Chris Packham demanded action at Hodes Wood near Ashford. The Environment Agency is investigating. New areas are to be created on the M25 and other so-called smart motorways in the southeast, providing space for drivers to stop in an emergency on stretches where there is currently no hard shoulder. The M25 will get 24 in Surrey, Kent, Hertfordshire and Essex. A Sussex police officer has been cleared of the attempted rape of a woman in a hotel. 46-year-old Constable Daniel Julian from Pulborough had faced charges of sexual assault, sexual activity without consent and attempted rape. He was acquitted today by a jury at Lewes Crown Court. Now, it is just after 7:15. A reminder of our top story tonight. A doctor has claimed at his employment tribunal that a gang culture existed at an NHS neurosurgery department. Mansour Farougi also alleges patients were put at risk at the University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation's trust. The trust says it will vigorously contest his claims.
And join me later in the programme to find out what's going on at Guru Nanak Darbar Gurdwara in Gravesend.
And the weekend is springing into action. A warm start, but you might need an extra layer come Sunday. A full forecast later on in the programme.
Now, you may remember Mr. Doodle, the Kent artist with millions of followers on social media, who spent years covering everything in his house, from his microwave to his bedding, in doodle art. Well, now we get to understand why, because his extraordinary life has just been turned into a documentary film. Sam Cox will be joining me on the sofa in a moment, but first let's take a look.
Hello there. I am Mr. Doodle. Doodling forever.
There was work coming in and I started taking on commissions. It was a good feeling getting paid to do my work, but I wanted to do bigger projects. I was on around 5,000 Instagram and Facebook followers. And then one day I was drawing in a little pop-up shop in Old Street Station, and I was drawing on the floor, and this lady came in and took a video of me drawing. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Later that evening I was just looking on my Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and I realised this video had started getting really popular, and it had like 10 million views.
Well, let's welcome Mr. Doodle himself, Sam Cox, and also the Oscar-nominated director, Jamie DeCruz, who is behind the film. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today.
Thanks for
Loving the
having us.
outfit.
Thank you.
You're blending in very nicely with the background. Now, this is a really moving documentary. It's different, I think, to what I was expecting. It's very moving, very inspiring. What was it like for you to watch it?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I love the film. It's been the dream working with the team behind it, Jamie and Ed, the other director. They've done an amazing job, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. It's my favourite thing I've ever been involved in, and yeah, it tells the story that I don't think people would expect, kind of like you're saying, and but I think I'm really happy with what's been done and what the guys have done. It's really great.
Well, you're very honest in it, and a lot of it is about seemingly almost a kind of struggle between you, Sam, and then Mr. Doodle as well. It's quite a sort of complex interweaving of those two parts of you.
Yeah.
What was it like watching that play out, and also seeing your family's reactions to what you went through?
I think the process of making the film was really therapeutic to me. It helps me now understand the difference between Mr. Doodle and Sam, and the film kind of explains more about that. But now I'm able to kind of navigate my way through life with a better understanding of who I am based on what we went through making the film. And yes, it's great, and I think it's a very different film because other documentaries don't really use similar ways of telling those stories, but it's kind of non-fiction in places, and I quite like how imaginative the directors got, and everyone involved really got into the whole Doodle Land experience and embraced the whole idea of Mr. Doodle, so it's really fun.
Definitely, it's really creative. It's almost like we're kind of inside your head in a funny way, isn't it? Jamie, is that the vision that you had? Is it the documentary that you set out to make, or did it evolve?
It definitely evolved. Yeah, I mean, we didn't really know when we started off. We were making a film about the house. The house was the kind of the main sort of part of the story Sam wanted to tell. But the first time I met Sam and went to that house, I found it completely overwhelming, and I thought that we have to make the film somehow represent that experience, because for Sam, the Doodle House is a place of comfort and peace and serenity. And for most other people, it's really quite overwhelming. And I think the film tries to kind of create that experience of what it's like to be Sam and to be kind of consumed by this need to constantly doodle, but also to kind of to try and for us to understand what that might be like.
Well, the house is possibly what you're most famous for, and that's what really propelled you to these sort of stratospheric social media heights of millions and millions of followers. But actually, when you came out seemingly on social media and spoke about your own personal struggles, you got an awful lot of support, didn't you?
Yeah, I think people, I mean, I don't really share that much personal stuff about myself on social media. I mean, I usually keep it to just doodles, and everything's kind of happy, and all the characters are smiling and everyone's having a good time and things. But through my own life, there's been, it hasn't always been pure joy. I mean, mostly it has, but and then when I shared that, it was kind of interesting for me because I never really do that, and yeah, it was really nice to see how people responded to it and supported me, and yeah, it's just and a lot of that kind of goes into what's in the film, and yeah, it's just I'm really happy with what happened, I think.
Because you've almost kind of fleshed out this sort of the art has a cartoonish quality almost, doesn't it? And for you to be so brave to come forward and present what's happening with your personal life as well, I think people would really respond to that, have really responded to that, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I didn't kind of choose what happened to me, and I don't know what I'd be like in my life if it hadn't happened. But yeah, I think it just felt like something that I wanted to share because it was such an interesting experience for me. I mean, it had its very dark moments, but also had really amazingly happy moments, even though it was a kind of awful thing to sort of lose my mind temporarily. But I kind of went to Doodle Land for a while, and that was an interesting, very unique experience that I couldn't help but then share with the world, I think. It would have felt wrong to not to, I think.
Very, very inspiring stuff. I'm sure it'll do really well. Sam and Jamie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Now, final preparations are underway for the most important date in the Sikh calendar. It's Vaisakhi this weekend, commemorating the year of 1699, when Sikhism born as a collective faith. It's a festival which takes place every year on either the 13th or the 14th of April. In Gravesend, about 10,000 people are expected to join a colourful parade through the town, enjoying music and traditional food at the town's Gurdwara, the largest outside of India. Rina Anobal, presenter of BBC Radio's Asian news programme here in the southeast, has this report.
The congregation and team of volunteers at Guru Nanak Darbar Gurudwara in Gravesend are preparing for Vaisakhi, Sikhism's most important festival, which takes place this weekend. One of the main elements of preparation is lowering the Nishan Sahib flagpole.
What we have is called the Nishan Sahib ceremony, in which the flag of outside a Gurdwara is being changed. This is an auspicious occasion, and it happens just a couple of days before Vaisakhi, which is the celebration of the birth of the Khalsa. The Khalsa means the pure ones.
In 1699, the 10th Sikh Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, spoke to a crowd of thousands of people and asked for 5 volunteers to come forward and lay down their lives for their religion. The 5 who volunteered ended up becoming the 5 beloved, or the Panj Pyare.
So we still have the Panj Pyare in representation form. So during the Vaisakhi celebrations, what you'll see, the procession at Gravesend Gurdwara will be led by the 5 beloved, the Panj Pyare, and they'll be leading that procession. Also what you have is the Amrit Sanchar ceremony, which is the continued initiation of the Khalsa in this day and age, and that's also carried out by the 5 beloved, the Panj Pyare.
Some of the volunteers began work at 4 a.m. this morning to make a start on langar, the communal meal offered to anyone who visits the Gurudwara. They're expecting 3,000 people today and 10,000 people tomorrow. Seva, or selfless service, is an important part of the Sikh religion.
I think when you come to the Gurdwara Sahib to do seva, you're part of something far bigger than you, and maybe your own little world problems, and to feel part of a community this large that work in a concerted way to serve the rest of the community, I think it's a huge privilege.
Tomorrow, a live procession called a Nagar Kirtan will begin at the Gurdwara and travel through Gravesend. There'll also be a Dharmik Mela taking place at the Gurdwara, which will feature rides for children, live singers and musicians, and lots of free food stalls. Rina Annabil at Guru Nanak Darbar Gurdwara for BBC South East Today, Gravesend.
Football now, and after the recent successes of the Lionesses, the profile of the women's game has never been higher. Today, to build even more interest in the sport, fans were given a rare opportunity to meet the Brighton and Hove Albion women's team at their first ever open training session. Juliet Parkin has more.
A rare opportunity for Seagulls fans to get a closer inspection of the women's team at work. This open training session a chance to see behind the scenes how the squad prepares for a big game.
I've been a fan of Brighton for a while, so to be able to come here and to get to see how they train is absolutely incredible.
As a person with a disability, Millie and the team and everyone at Brighton really go over and above to make sure that me and my assistant's dog can come to watch the Seagulls. So we jumped at the chance to come and watch them train.
I really enjoy watching the ladies, and maybe when I'm older I want to play for Brighton and be goalkeeper.
A chance for players too to give an insight into their day job.
Their support has been really, really good, but it's always nice to give a little extra and to show them what we do day to day. Actually showing them that we're working really hard, and yeah, I mean, we're just normal people as well, and that's easier to show when you're actually a bit closer to them.
It's hoped that days like this will help fans to better understand how the women's game is evolving at Brighton and see training skills transferred to match day when it really matters. And no bigger stage to put on a perfect show than at the Amex this time next week against Everton, 2 places below Brighton in the table. Next Friday night, the stadium spotlight will be on the women's team this time.
For us to play in front of our fans at the Amex against Everton is going to be a wonderful experience, and we really want to put in a performance that the fans can be proud of, that people enjoy watching, and hopefully we'll get a result at the end of it.
And it's hoped that fans will follow an upward trend in attendance. The 77,000 at last season's FA Cup final remains a domestic record in the women's game. The current Women's Super League record was set in February, when more than 60,000 saw Arsenal beat Manchester United. Brighton's highest ever attendance came at the Amex earlier this season, when just short of 7,000 saw them play Tottenham.
Playing at the Amex, my goodness me. We want a big crowd there. We want people to come and support it because we want to be able to say to the club, there's a demand.
After a difficult start to the season, recent form has seen the Albion move up to 8th in the Women's Super League table. Still some way off the long-term aim of a top 4 finish, but it's hoped that these connections with fans will harness enough support at the Amex next week to seal a win. Juliette Parkin, BBC South East Today, Lancing.
Time now for a look at the weather. John's with us. Hello.
Hi, Ellie. Yeah, the weather is never entirely plain sailing, but it was delightful earlier on out on the water. Did cloud over a touch, and actually we're ending the day on a cloudier note, but don't despair. The weather is more or less set fair through the weekend. Certainly some more warm sunshine to look forward to tomorrow. More cloud in the sky, I think, on Sunday and a cooler breeze. And certainly by early next week, we're kind of back to square one with some blustery showers. It will feel chillier by then, but that's a long way off. It's been a delightful day. Just about across the whole of the southeast. We reached 21 degrees across the North Kent coast, cooling off as we head through this evening. A bit more cloud, as I say, in the sky. That cloud thickening up a little bit as we head through the second half of the night, pushing in from the west, but it will stay dry and it won't be cold. Temperatures staying around 8, 9, 10 degrees. So a dry start to a dry day. As I mentioned, fair bit of cloud around first thing in the morning. That'll tend to break up. The sun will win the battle and we'll settle into a lovely afternoon, I think. Bit fresher along the coast, to the south coast that is, with a breeze off the sea, a bit like today. The highest temperatures will be further north and once more will be close to 20 degrees. Warmest along the North Kent coast. A reminder that sun is very strong now. If you're out on it for any length of time, you probably will need some sunscreen. On into Sunday then, another dry day, different feel. More of a breeze coming in from the northwest, a cooler breeze, so that will restrict the temperatures, but hey, with some sunshine again, it should be okay. A dry weekend, we haven't had one of those for an awfully long time. Monday though, definitely chillier with some blustery showers and a similar sort of pattern as we go through to the middle of the week as well. So you're going to notice a difference through the early part of next week. It'll be fresher, it'll be blustery, there will be some sharp showers around, but hopefully, Ellie, by the end of the week, things will start to dry up again.
Love that you mentioned sunscreen in the forecast, John.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's it from me and from John. Linda Hardy is back with your late news update at 10:30. But from all of us for the moment, bye-bye.